This meeting is being recorded.
All right, this is Troy, your host. We are live and recording.
Okay, thank you for that, Troy. I will call the meeting to order. It is 2:47 p.m. on August the 8th. If you all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much for that. Attorney Garcia, do we have certification of today's agenda?
You do. The County Attorney's Office reviewed all items on the agenda, and the Board has proper jurisdiction over all matters, and where matters are needed notification, such notice has been provided.
Okay, thank you. And do commissioners have any disclosures for items on this agenda today?
I have none, thank you.
No, sir.
And I have none either. With that, we'll move on to item 2A in our land use meeting agenda items, which is the Meridian Office Park Filing 1, 38th Amendment Final Plat, Project File SB 2023-019. Brett Thomas, Chief Planner, presenting for staff. Hi, Brett.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Brett Thomas representing Plan Services. The project before you is Meridian Office Park Filing 1, 38th Amendment, Project File Number SB 2023-019. John Kilrow is present on behalf of the owner, Meridian MB Investments. Before I begin, staff has public correspondence that was received today from an abutting landowner who was unable to attend in person. That is labeled as Exhibit 1. And then the applicant's response is also being handed out and is labeled as Exhibit 2. The request is for approval of a final plat consisting of 137 residential lots, 12 tracts, and associated public roads and private alleys on 29.78 acres within the Meridian PD. The intent of the final plat process is to provide for the review of final engineering plans, the subdivision improvement agreement, public dedications, and other legal agreements. Final plat process begins with submittal of an application, following a review period by referral agencies and the public, and acceptance of engineered plans. The request is considered by the board at a public meeting. Referral comments were standard in nature and have been addressed by the applicant. Correspondence was received from an adjacent business owner who primarily had comments regarding the fence plan to buffer its manufacturing facility from the proposed residential development. The site is located in the northern portion of Douglas County near the interchange of Highway E470 and Interstate 25. More specifically, the site is located within the Meridian PD, south of Highway E470, north of Lansing Circle and Meridian Boulevard. The boundary of Centennial Airport is located approximately 1,200 feet northeast of the site. As seen on this aerial, the property is bordered by 470 to the north. To the west of the site is Cottonwood Creek, as well as the furniture manufacturing facility, which is located north of Lansing Circle. An undeveloped but platted parcel is located south of Lansing Circle, and there is an existing office building to the east. The Meridian PD, inclusive of planning areas A, B, and C, was brought together as a unified plan development in 2004. The board approved the 15th Amendment to the Meridian PD in 2018, which established a process for the conversion of commercial square footage to residential units. In 2020, the 17th Amendment to the Meridian PD was administratively approved to increase the maximum permitted building height and reduce the minimum permitted lot area for residential development within this portion of planning area A of the Meridian PD. The final plat layout substantially conforms to the preliminary plan approved by the board in December of 2022. The applicant proposes 137 single-family residential lots on approximately 13.8 acres of the 29.8 acre site. Gross density of the proposed subdivision is 4.6 dwelling units per acre. The applicant proposes a design which includes approximately 10 acres in tracts, 4 acres of public right-of-way, and 1.8 acres of private streets. Tracts C and D are proposed to include park facilities. Noise mitigation walls and fences are proposed to mitigate noise from Highway 470. Additionally, the applicant has coordinated fencing with the adjacent manufacturing facility, and fence improvements are included in the SIA. Here's a view looking northeast into the site from Lansing Circle, near the proposed main access to the site. The American Family Insurance building located east of the site is visible in the background. Here's a view looking northwest into the site from Lansing Circle. FW Manufacturing is visible in the top left of the photo. Fill dirt from the Compass Meridian multifamily project west of Jamaica Street is visible in the top right of the photo. And this is a view looking west into the site from the American Family Insurance site. These are the approval standards applicable to a final plat. A detailed assessment of the project's compliance with all standards is included in the staff report. Staff has evaluated the final plat request in accordance with Article 5 of the subdivision resolution. Condition number 1, prior to recordation of the final plat, the applicant shall submit a signed copy of the certification of allocation of unused dwelling units as prescribed in section F9E of the Meridian PD. Condition number 2, prior to recordation of the final plat, the applicant shall provide payment to the Douglas County School District for applicable cash in lieu of land for the equivalent of 1.628 acres as prescribed in section H12 of the Meridian PD. Condition number 3, prior to recordation of the final plat, technical corrections to the final plat exhibit shall be made to the satisfaction of Douglas County. Condition number 4, Colorado Parks and Wildlife literature shall be made available to homebuyers regarding the existence of wildlife in the area and how to minimize conflicts. Condition number 5, during construction activity within the development, the applicant, its successors, and assigns shall take all reasonable care to watch for historic resources, paleontological resources, and other cultural history resources, and shall immediately notify Douglas County and complete appropriate Colorado Office of Archaeology and Historic Preservation data management forms in the event of such discovery. And condition number 6, all commitments and promises made by the applicant or the applicant's representative during the public meeting and/or agreed to in writing and included in the public record have been relied upon by the Board of County Commissioners in approving the application. Therefore, such approval is conditioned upon the applicant's full satisfaction of all such commitments and promises. Section 504.06 of the subdivision resolution sets forth parameters for the board's determination on final plat request as noted on this slide. This concludes staff's presentation. I'm available to take questions at this time. Otherwise, John Kilrow with Shea Properties is here to present the request.
Great. Thank you for that presentation, Brett. Any questions for staff?
I have none, thank you.
No, sir.
And I have none either. So with that, we'll ask the applicant to come up, just state where you're from and your name, and then proceed with your presentation.
Commissioners, thank you for allowing me to present today. I'm John Kilrow with Shea Properties. Normally, you would see Eric Heacock here on the second string that gets called in occasionally, and David Vasquez is right up there in the first string with Eric. Also with us, we have Travis, who is our civil engineer, Jeff, who's covering for Curtis Rowe on traffic. We have Tom Raganetti and Marcus. Marcus and Tom are always on our team, make sure we're going in the right line. Unfortunately, my notes are on little tiny print, so I gotta wear my glasses. And we're here to update you on the approved Lansing plan and request the approval of the plat, as Brett said. Today's agenda will recap a few things, and I'm sorry I didn't push the right buttons. Okay. Okay. We'll update you on the approved Lansing plan, request approval of the plat. Today's agenda will be the preliminary plan approval recap, our project overview, some of the commitments to referral agencies and neighbors, approval of the conditions, and our request. As Brent said, we are located in Meridian, north part of Douglas County. The suburban market's quite robust, as you know. It generates about 30% of the economic activity, 244,000 jobs. And one of the things we're all seeing with that is places to live are tougher in this neck of the woods, particularly when it comes to anything near affordable. And this project will meet that sector, we hope. And another interesting fact is about 48 million square feet of office space is in this southeast corridor, and people think downtown's the happening space. That's really only about 27 million square feet. So this is the hub of activity in Denver. We certainly don't have to cover these topics. The accolades that Douglas County gets, and we use these in all our presentations to any company from outside of the state. It's a great place to live. When we talked about the preliminary plan, we implemented various items, and we talked about those items. One was a new signage program throughout Meridian. You'll see that that's about done at this point. We reconfigured the road, which is in the pink color, to straighten out the road going through Meridian. I think it's had a good effect. The other item that has been really successful is Spin at Meridian. That's our bike share, scooter share program. There's about 100 bike and scooters, about 75 of them are scooters. Up to now, since we implemented that program about a year ago, we record the mileage on the scooters. Right now, there have been over 30,000 miles of rides on that program. And we hope to see that go into the Inverness area as well. The fitness program and the park program were part of our commitment when we did the 16th Amendment. We've made changes to our water system, including adding a connection to the Wise Water system and working with Inverness on a emergency interconnect there. We were fortunate enough to see our industrial area take off a little bit. Amazon was the first to come in, and we worked with them to build that building in record time, by the way. And I think a lot of that goes to your staff and your group. I don't think any building could be built as fast as that was built without the cooperation of your team. It was phenomenal. In fact, we've heard back from Amazon, they just can't replicate that. Apex East and South have been filled. They're at 97%. That's our affordable project. And Compass Meridian is now underway. And I will tell you that Compass Meridian speaks to the desire to live in this area. So far, we've released 120 units, and we've got 117 leases. We're slightly behind schedule on that project, but it's moving along well. And it's a tough nut right now to get things done. Just a little bit of history here. Since '86, the comprehensive plan, Douglas County suggested an urban land and higher residential density in that area. And again, that's working with our housing needs, which just continue on. In 2019, the 17th Amendment was approved, as Brett mentioned, which was designating a lot size and building height that squeezed the lots a little bit, but increased the height in order to accommodate a housing product that was more dense and could meet that more affordable designation. 2022, you approved the preliminary plan. Now we move to that final plat. You've seen this before. This is the location in yellow of the site on the north end of Meridian. The site plan, you've seen that as well, the residential lots. Very, I hate to call it basic, but it's a very economical layout that allows the density to push the limits a little bit. The entries will be off Lansing Circle. As mentioned, there's adequate, more than adequate parks, and this is in conjunction with other parks we've built within Meridian. Just recently, Sarah's Park opened. Sarah was an employee at Shea that passed away a couple years ago, and we dedicated a park for her the day of the big tornado in Highlands Ranch, as a matter of fact. And maybe that was a sign. We've completed the work with our Clomar, and our flood district comments were addressed. We've dealt with the noise, and this is significant, and I think you'll see this in Bruce's email, some of his concerns, which we've had extensive meetings with Bruce. That outreach is going on well before the preliminary plan, and whereas we always think we've reached the end of the line and satisfied him, new things come up, which they did today, but I think we're prepared to meet all his needs. fact, I know we are. We've got a couple different sound barriers. The one in gold would be an HOA sound barrier, and those were required to meet the sound requirements of the county from C470 as well as from Bruce's facility. Now, the green sound privacy fence was something extra that he asked for. And we're accommodating that need, and we think it's the right thing to do, which is why we're doing it. But I got a comment, when he keeps pushing, it becomes very difficult to meet his needs. But again, we plan to do so. Centennial has some DNL zones. 65 is the highest. We're just outside of that area of influence. Residential single family is a permitted use in this area. In fact, in most of Meridian it is. Of course, we're going to be in full compliance with Douglas County zoning and the Meridian PD. All construction will be in compliance with the height, the sound, the safety, the easements, and all disclosures. And that's another thing, by the way, we're working with Bruce on, is to make sure the disclosure fills his needs. His building is a little bit of an oddball, whereas it was constructed early on in the life of Meridian. It was originally a small computer company, and he turned it into a cabinet factory. So he does create some noise. Our outreach included American Family, and again, Marcus Bachner has been involved with this. It was sold recently to Agra Holdings. So American Family has moved out. Agra moved in about 50% of their people, and they're going to lease 50% of the rest of the building, which we're seeing a little bit of trend of that at Meridian. Post-COVID, a lot of companies have downsized, but we're fortunate to see them being backfilled, such as Jacobs Engineering. It's almost completely backfilled now. Again, with Bruce and FW Manufacturing, we have a very extensive and effective sound barrier. We have an emergency access that's not on their property, although in this letter he's asking us to reconsider that, and extension of an initial fencing plan to make sure the projects are separated and they look like a planned community. We always end up thinking that way, and we hope this works for us. On our outreach, we have the converted DUs. We have worked on the connected trail system, exercise equipment, bike share, new parks, which we had committed to, environmental noise studies and mitigation, and we've met the needs of the airport. We have responded to referral comments. We've had no public opposition. We've had Bruce, but that hasn't been opposition. That's been a desire for us to work together. The airport concerns have been addressed and met, and FW concerns have been, again, addressed. Our preliminary plan approval conditions, the final certification, the school fee, compliance with historic resource practices, wildlife literature, and technical corrections will all be done to the satisfaction of staff. And we hope we've met all the requirements. We believe we have, and we're here for any additional comments. And with that, our request is approval. And that's all of my presentation. I know you have a busy schedule, so I hope we got through it quick enough. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that presentation, and I know we always appreciate when Shay is here. It's an incredible opportunity for us to partner with such a wonderful developer that normally creates a phenomenal product in our community. Let me just open it up for the board for any questions or comments.
So, John, thank you for the presentation. I do have a couple of questions. I remember when we did this last approval that there were several requests in the packet from Mr. Devine.
Yes, that's Bruce Devine, yes.
And I see there's more today that we were just handed that it looks like it happened as the business meeting was going on.
Yes.
So I just want to make sure, I was trying to pay attention to you and read these at the same time. So it looks like Mr. Vasquez has committed to some of the things that Mr. Devine is demanding. And I know that the last time you were here, that you, it appeared that you had worked hard to please his demands. So do you feel that you have solved it with this, or are there still some ongoing conversations?
Let me defer that to David Vasquez, who's here.
Perfect.
But I will say from our standpoint, anytime Mr. Devine has asked for anything, we've accommodated it. It's become a laundry list and an ongoing list. As you mentioned, this was given to us just today. So David, could you comment? And this is David Vasquez, also with Shea.
Thank you. And I'll just add, as sitting here for 6.5 years, listening to your presentations, you have a reputation in my mind of working with neighbors and doing what you can to accommodate their needs. And so I feel that, I just want you to know that that is my understanding of how you have done business for years. So thank you, Mr.
Well, thank
Vasquez.
you. Go ahead, David.
Hi, Commissioners. David Vasquez, 8351 East Bellevue Avenue, Denver. In regard to your comment there, yes, we did have some last-minute conversations, as you see in Exhibit 1 and Exhibit 2. Bruce and I had a conversation on Wednesday for about half hour regarding this fence issue. So I think he's in full understanding. I think the one thing that I wanted to clarify is he had a statement within his, I think it's Exhibit 1, as far as the gate is concerned. We are looking at that, but that gate is for public utility access only in the case of emergency. So there is a corridor that comes in between the two sections of the Lansing property and has been there for quite a number of years. That has a Metro District sanitary sewer line, a gravity line. It has 2 force mains in it. It has a gas main that runs through there as well. So we've had to at least work with the utilities to ensure that there is some safety precautions as there and access to them in case of an emergency. So Bruce's real concern through this whole discussion has always been that there would be no public access into his property, which working with staff as well, we've added another gate, as I indicated in my email back to him today, on the very west side of that. But we feel that we have worked very closely with Bruce in looking at his concerns and mitigating everything that he's talking to.
So would you classify these things as criteria needed for approval or friendly neighbor things you're doing to accommodate your neighbor?
I would probably tell you that they would be a little bit of both, Commissioner. It would be a little bit about both accommodating them, but you can make them as part of the criteria. We have already done that. They will be part of the plan as a revised fence plan submitted to staff. As I said, the gate is the only real issue. That one came up today. That's why I wanted to be sure that I responded to his email as soon as I could when I got here today. So that is one that is for public utility only access.
Thank you, and I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. Commissioner Teal?
No questions. I appreciated the questions from my colleague and the answers.
Okay, thanks. So for the applicant, let me start by asking, are you okay with all of the conditions as presented?
John Kilrow, again, Shea Property. Yes, we are.
Okay, thank you for that. So John, just a couple of things. I know in the staff report, in the referral comments, there's some reference to the Arepo Airport Authority, and you made the comment that all of their issues have been satisfied. Can you walk us through that? I know in the May correspondence that was received and included in the packet, there was a recommendation not to approve, primarily as a result of desire for navigation easements and other requirements from the Airport Authority. Can you just help us understand that a little bit better?
Yeah, and again, I'd rather, if I may, defer to David because he's been working closer with the Airport Authority. So let me drag him back up here. And Commissioner, I would say that the first reaction we always get from the Airport Authority, regardless of what we're doing, is let's not do it because that would be the best scenario. But once we get past that conversation, and we have some constructive dialogue, we reach a conclusion. Much of this revolves around noise and goes back to that last amendment to the PD where we raised the height and made the lot smaller. But David can fill in on some of the other comments.
Commissioners, David Vasquez, Shea Properties again. So as far as with the airport is concerned, the Meridian PD does have an navigation easement already as part of the PD. So it is already covered with that in the recorded version of the PD. So the other thing that we have worked closely on with the builder is that how they are going to mitigate all of the noise, the additional noise, as far as through their construction practices. They have built one other project in the Meridian Business Center, Peoria Place, as part of this, and they did conform to all of those requirements as well. So those all go through inspections here with the Douglas County building inspectors as well for that. And then as part of that, we have worked with the builder, and we will finalize some language with them for disclosures for this. And I know that is a request from Mr. Devine as well in his last iteration here with the preliminary plat here to the board. And so the builder will have those disclosures as part of this as well, Commissioner.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I do sit on that Arepo Airport Authority, and I know those conversations are probably accurate in the way you described them. Like I said, huge fans of Shea, and we're never opposed to development that makes sense for our citizens and where mobility issues have been addressed and sound issues. In the correspondence they sent over, I'll just step back. I mean, number one, the issue I think for the airport, and I share this, is that it's okay to build next to an airport as long as the people purchasing are fully aware of what they're buying. So, really pleased that navigation easement would be part of the closing documentation. Not sure whether or not the average resident is going to review all that, and I think oftentimes in closings they do not. So I think part of the hope with our development community is that in marketing these properties, that there's that marketing honesty on the front end with potential customers, that you're right next to an airport. It would be horrible for people to just sign through a closing because they're excited about it. Then they get into a house and it's just way too loud and they're overwhelmed. And then the airport gets all the noise complaints. So that's not the responsibility of you all or the airport. It's the responsibility of the home buyer to do their due diligence. So I get that, but I think we can help in that by just really overdoing it on providing notice. And Shea has always been so great about that. As Commissioner Thomas stated, your engagement with citizens is legendary. So that's just maybe a somewhat anecdotal comment from me that would be very helpful, is when the development community engages on the front end with those they're marketing to. And let me just pause there. I mean, are you, in addition to the navigation easement, how are you notifying from a sales perspective those that may be interested in purchasing one of those units?
So it's our understanding, Commissioner, that as part of that portion of it, the home builder during that sales piece will also show the vicinity, part of the vicinity map, the Centennial Airport's location to the location that's being presented today. So they'll be part of that overall vicinity map within the sales area.
Okay, great. The other part of that letter was a suggestion from the airport that there be a verified interior noise attenuation of at or below 45 decibels. Is that something that Shea has taken into account?
So we have looked at that as well with our sound engineers and our sound consultants. So that has been kind of looked at both not only from the E470 perspective, the FW manufacturing perspective, but also then within the home building construction for all of those sound attenuations.
Great. So you've looked at it, and I can't emphasize that enough, how helpful that is when window panes and certain construction materials are used to attenuate noise. That can really help when you're that close to an airport. So you've looked at it. Any kind of measures along those lines?
Yeah, so in talking to the home builder, they will provide all of those windows, panes, all of the additional insulation and construction as part of their home building process.
Wonderful. Okay. I don't have any additional questions. I'll go back to the Board of County Commissioners and ask if the board has any additional questions.
No, sir.
I have none.
Okay. So with that, I'll open it up for any citizen comment. Is there any citizen comment in the room with regard to this item?
We're not seeing any in the room right now. Abe?
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioners. Yeah, I have no online comment.
Okay, thank you, Troy. So with that, I'll close citizen comment and bring it back to the board for any further discussion and or a motion.
You know, my only real concern, and I'll address this comment to the applicant, it does have to do with Mr. Devine and his business. Guys, I feel like a big part of this job up here is tempting companies into the county and trying to give them the assurances that they'll have a home here. You know, yeah, a home for their employees, a home for their managers, but a good home. And so hearing Mr. Devine's concerns always give me pause. I'm really happy to see that, you know, you guys are taking that responsibility straight on, because, yeah, I never want to ever see a business feeling like they've been forced out of the county. Now, I think you guys are doing the right thing. Please keep that good neighbor policy moving in order to, you know, be sure to mitigate his concerns. And it's okay. I'm not asking a question. I'm not putting you back on the spot. I'm just sharing with you. That's been my true concern in this whole thing, because otherwise, I think it's phenomenal. I mean, guys, I serve on the Denver Regional Council of Governments. I feel like I've had 9 years of my life being lectured by people who may not actually match my own philosophy and political views, and just lecturing and lecturing about we've got to put jobs where people live. And now here we have an opportunity to put people where they live next to where their jobs are. And again, the master planning of the community. I think it's phenomenal. So keep up that commitment to keep working with Mr. Devine and make sure he doesn't feel like he's being forced out.
John Kilrow again. The reason I stepped up again is because I want to affirm that that's what we do. I think David has had maybe 15 meetings with Mr. Devine. We don't intend to walk away until he's satisfied. In fact, at our Compass apartment community up the street, we give them a priority. We give them it's not a discount, but they get fees waived if they live in our community. So we're working with them. We're going to be friends with them forever, and we intend to keep that relationship. So thanks for bringing that up.
Okay. Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate you giving us that reassurance. So we are counting on you. Again, I hate the idea of, well, actually, I love the idea of going out and tempting businesses to come into the county. If you guys have any friends, tell them to come on down anytime. We're happy to steal them away from another community. But I hate the idea of losing somebody based on the actions that we're all doing together. Abe, I'll go ahead and prompt you. Obviously, I did introduce another response from the applicant. I'll open that up to the rest of the board.
I have nothing else.
I don't either, so I will accept the motion.
If it does please the board, I do have a motion to approve the Meridian Office Park Filing 1 and 38th Amendment Final Plat, because it does meet all the approval criteria with 6 conditions as presented and agreed to. Project file is SB 2023-019.
Second.
So we have a first and second on the floor. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that motion carries 3-0. Congratulations. So with that, we'll move on to item 3, our public hearing agenda items. And we'll begin with item 3A, the Fields Preliminary Plan, project file SB 2022-036, scheduled to be continued to September 12th, 2023 at 2:30 p.m. Heather Scott, Principal Planner, presenting for staff.
Heather Scott, Planner. The applicant has requested a continuance until September 12th. They are currently working on coming up with an alternative plan. They have submitted some documentation and are trying to finalize more documentation for us at this time.
Okay, thank you for that, Heather. Any questions for staff?
I have none.
No, sir.
And I have none either. So with that, I will accept a motion.
I have a motion to continue the Fields preliminary plan, project file SB 2022-036, until September 12th, 2023 at 2:30 PM.
Second.
So we have a first and second on the floor. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that motion carries 3-0. With that, we'll move on to item 3B under our public hearing agenda items, and that's Sterling Ranch Filing 5C, Minor Development, Project File SB 2023-006. Again, Brett Thomas, Chief Planner, presenting for staff.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Brett Thomas representing Plan Services. Project before you is Sterling Ranch Filing 5C, project number SB 2023-006. Sterling Ranch LLC is the owner, and Sterling Ranch Development Company is the applicant representative. Approval of a minor development final plat for one multifamily lot to accommodate up to 295 multifamily units and one superblock lot for future development on 25.58 acres within the Sterling Ranch PD. The intent of the minor development process is to provide a streamlined review process for non-residential and multifamily subdivisions. The minor development process begins with submittal of an application. Following a review period by referral agencies and the public, there are public hearings before the Planning Commission and Board of County Commissioners. Public correspondence was received from the Roxborough Village First HOA in response to the courtesy notice process and primarily focused on emergency evacuation, required amenities, and wastewater treatment capacity. The Planning Commission heard the proposal at a public hearing on July 10th, 2023. No members of the public spoke in response to the application. The Planning Commission asked clarifying questions regarding water demands and the proposed attainable housing component. The Planning Commission recommended approval of the request 6-0 with 3 conditions recommended by staff. The site is located in the northwest part of the county within the Sterling Ranch development. The site is located north of Waterton Road, east of its intersection with Roxborough Park Road. Immediately east of the site is the Larry D. Moore water treatment plant. To the south, across Waterton Road, is an unplatted portion of the Sterling Ranch development. To the west, across the Denver water line, is unplatted land that is part of Sterling Ranch Preliminary Plan 7. To the north of the site is unplatted land that is part of Sterling Ranch Preliminary Plan 5. The site was rezoned from Agricultural 1 to Planned Development with approval of the Sterling Ranch PD by the board in July of 2013. In 2021, the board approved the amended and restated Sterling Ranch water appeal, which among other changes allowed for the CAB to propose alternate minimum water demand standards as part of future development applications. Preliminary Plan 5 was approved by the board in February of 2020, with subsequent final plats approved in 2020 and 2021. Preliminary Plan 5 consisted of 351 residential lots, 1 superblock lot, 29 tracts, and associated public roads. The application is a minor development final plat of Superblock Lot 352 of Preliminary Plan 5. The minor development final plat proposes 2 lots. The northern lot, Lot 1, is a superblock lot for future development, and Lot 2 is a multifamily lot for apartment units. The purpose of this minor development final plat is to evaluate the adequacy of water supply and required transportation improvements associated with the proposed multifamily lot. Lot 2 is proposed to accommodate up to 295 multifamily units on 13.5 acres, subject to a concurrent site improvement plan application. Lot 1 is proposed as a superblock lot for future development. Additional subdivision approvals will be required prior to development of Lot 1. Water supplies for filings 1 through 7 are provided through IGAs with City of Aurora and Town of Castle Rock, including renewable and South Metro Wise Authority water, as well as Denver Basin groundwater rights associated with Cherokee Ranch. Those supplies were evaluated and found to meet applicable approval criteria at the time of preliminary plan for previous filings. No change to the previously approved water supply is proposed for filing 5C. Both the state engineer and the county's water consultant have found the proposed water supply to be adequate to serve future development associated with this plat. This is a view looking west across the southern portion of proposed Lot 2. Waterton Road and the interim ponds are visible in the photo. This is a view looking north into the site. These are the approval standards for a minor development final plat, which are discussed in detail on the staff report. In addition, the water appeal approval standards apply to this application. A detailed assessment of the project's compliance with all standards is included in the staff report. Should the board find that the approval standards for the minor development final plat are met, the following proposed conditions should be considered for inclusion in its motion. Condition number 1, prior to recordation of the final plat, technical corrections to the final plat exhibit shall be made to the satisfaction of Douglas County. Condition number 2, prior to approval of the site improvement plan, the applicant shall provide payment in the amount of $750 per multifamily dwelling unit to the Douglas County School District for capital mitigation. Condition number 3, prior to approval of the site improvement plan, the applicant shall provide payment to Douglas County for the pro rata share costs towards improvements to the state highway system in accordance with the commitments set forth in Sterling Ranch PD. And condition number 4, all commitments and promises made by the applicant or the applicant's representative during the public hearing and or agreed to in writing and included in the public record have been relied upon by the Board of County Commissioners in approving the application. Therefore, such approval is conditioned upon the applicant's full satisfaction of all such commitments and promises. Section 604A.08 of the subdivision resolution sets forth the parameters for the board's determination on minor development requests, as noted on this slide. This concludes staff's presentation. I'm available to take questions at this time. Otherwise, Susan Beckman with Sterling Ranch Development is available to make a presentation.
Great, thank you, Brett. Any questions for staff?
I have no questions. Thank you, Brett.
No, sir.
And I have none either. So with that, we'll invite the applicant to come forward with its presentation.
Susan Beckman, S-U-S-A-N-B-E-C-K-M-A-N, and I'm the Entitlement Director for Sterling Ranch Development Company, 8155 Piney River Avenue, Suite 200, Littleton, Colorado, 80125. I want to thank the County Commissioners this afternoon for taking the time to hear our application. I also want to thank the Douglas County Planning staff and Engineering staff for their professionalism and due diligence in this process. It really has been a pleasure to work with them.
Ms. Beckman, thank you for that. And maybe before we get started here, is the applicant okay with the 4 conditions as presented?
Yes, we are. 4 conditions. I thought there were 3 conditions.
4. Did I see 4?
It's 4.
The 4th condition, which was added since Planning Commission, would be the one that all commitments and promises made by the applicant.
Yes. That was a technical change that is always on all of our applications, and of course we commit to and support those conditions of approval. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Beckman. Please proceed.
I'd like to introduce the Sterling Ranch team. With me today is Brock Smethos, president of the Sterling Ranch Development Company, and Kevin Jonk. He's the newest member of our team. He's the Director of Engineering and Land Development, Sterling Ranch Development Company, and Kevin is a strong addition to our team. We have on virtually our team of consultants and experts: Andrea Cole, Manager, Dominion Water and Sanitation; Gary Debus, General Manager, Sterling Ranch Community Authority Board, the CAB. So when you hear me talking about the CAB today, the CAB is the organization over our 7 metro districts in Sterling Ranch. Brian Hart from Redland, he's our professional engineer. Cassie Slade, Fox Tuttle Transportation Group. Curtis Davidson, he is our park master planner in Sterling Ranch, and our landscape architect from PCS. We always want to make sure that we have our entire team of consultants and engineers available when we present an application to the Board of County Commissioners, because we want to make sure that we answer our questions comprehensively and accurately. I know that you all know where Sterling Ranch is, but here's just a reminder to have you catch your bearings. This is a map of Douglas County, and Sterling Ranch is the dark outline. That is our preliminary plan. The mountains are to the west. Sterling Ranch is located 4 miles south of C-470 and a mile west of Highway 85 off of Titan Road. We're very fortunate to be just south of Chatfield Park and north of Roxborough Park, and of course Lockheed Martin is to the west. Sterling Ranch Plan Development Community was unanimously approved by the Board of County Commissioners in 2013. And since that time, Sterling Ranch has grown into a vibrant and safe community. In fact, Sterling Ranch is the #1 best-selling master plan community in the metro area for the last 3 years, and it looks like we'll be the best-selling master plan community in the metro area again next year. Just to update you a little bit, we have 1,950 homes that have been sold. So we have residents, constituents, about 6,000 that are living in Sterling Ranch. We have approximately 3,000 more homes that are platted or under development. So we're pretty busy out on site. We have a diverse housing stock and style that includes single-family, multifamily townhomes, and our bestseller multi-generational homes. And we're full build-out will be in about 20 years. This afternoon, Sterling Ranch is asking for your support for a minor development plat application for 5C to most importantly, to establish a water supply and other infrastructure demands related to the development of Superblock Lot 352. A multifamily developer, Alliance, and you might, that might sound familiar, Alliance. Alliance is also the developer that is building the high-end luxury resort-like apartments on Rampart Range and Waterton Road. If you've driven by those lately, they're beautiful. It's coming out really great, and we hope to be leasing those apartments, those luxury apartments, early next year. But Alliance is processing a separate site improvement plan application they have submitted to the county last week. During that site improvement plan process, related construction plans, elevation, drainage, landscape, and engineering reports will be reviewed by the Douglas County Engineering. So we're on 2 tracks, the minor development plat and the site improvement plan. The area encompassing filing 5C parcel is just east of, it's just east of Roxborough Park Road. The yellow or the blue is the preliminary plan 5. And then of course going through our community is Waterton Road. So it's right on Waterton Road. The blue line encompasses the 351 units, single family units that were approved in 2020 in the preliminary plan. And at that time, this parcel, the red dot, was designated as a super block lot and was reserved at that time for multifamily. The proposed 5C MDP shows the subject parcel created a one subdivision, 25.58 acres. So when it was approved as a super block lot, it was one parcel with 2 lots. Initially, Sterling Ranch submitted filing 5C to include the entire subdivision, Lot 1 and Lot 2. Sterling Ranch is currently only seeking approval for Lot 2, and Lot 1 will stay a super block lot. And the reason I mention this is because many of the documents that you have in your packet may seem duplicative. We have 2 water packets and 2 transportation packets. That is because we have updated all the relevant documents to reflect the exclusive development of Lot 2. As you know, a minor development plat may be approved upon the findings it meets the Douglas County approval criteria, and the staff report outlines pretty much in detail our compliance to the criteria, but I'd like to take just a few minutes to go down the slides to review our compliance to all the approval criteria. Approval criteria 60301, a very important criteria, is conformance to the 2040 Comprehensive Master Plan. This area proposes urban development in the comprehensive plan. It is the Chatfield urban area, and we are considered a designated urban area. The Douglas County Comprehensive Plan has important goals and policies for urban areas that pertain to the specific MDP. The comprehensive plan encourages compatibility with surrounding areas, architectural variety and housing choices, and it encourages mixed residential densities to create a diversity of housing types and prices and price ranges. So that's what we're trying to do with this application. Approval criteria 60302, to comply with the Douglas County Comprehensive Plan policies for urban development that encourages mixed residential densities to create a diversity of housing types, Sterling Ranch is partnering with Alliance to develop this multifamily site for needed attainable apartments for those who work and live in Douglas County. Sterling Ranch is also required to provide attainable workforce housing in our PD commitments. The Sterling Ranch 5C MDP, under the requirement of attainable housing in our PD, will provide 265 attainable units that will help us comply with all our commitments in the PD. And I can talk, if you want to ask a little bit later on, if you have questions about how much these apartments would actually rent for, I have more information. Approval criteria 60303 conforms with the Section 18A water supply. 5C Lot 2 will be served by Sterling Ranch Community Authority Board, that is the water provider for Sterling Ranch. It's the retail water provider. Dominion Water and Sanitation District is the wholesale water district, and they will provide water and wastewater service to the Community Authority Board and to our community. The Colorado State Engineer has reviewed the updated packet for 5C and has confirmed that there is sufficient water currently physically available for this application. Both Dominion and the Sterling Ranch Community Authority Boards have provided commitment to serve letters, and they should be in your packet. Approval criteria 60304 provides a public wastewater collection treatment system. Dominion Water and Sanitation District has provided a commitment to serve letter not only for water but for wastewater collection and treatment. Dominion will continue to use the Roxborough Water and Sanitation District and Littleton Inglewood systems for wastewater conveyance and treatment. In the future, the Chatfield Basin Reclamation Facility, as you all are familiar with that, partially funded by ARPA money, will be constructed to provide sewer treatment for the Sterling Ranch development, the Chatfield Basin area, and the 85 Highway Corridor. Approval criteria 60306, soil and topographical conditions. The Colorado Geotechnical Study reviewed the proposed development and the AG Wassenaer's Geotechnical Site Development Study that should be in your packet, and noted in their review that no geological constraints are present with filing 5C that preclude us from developing the multifamily residential use on this property. A stormwater detention and quality pond will be constructed to support Lot 2 and will be located on this site. 60306 requires us to provide adequate drainage improvements. Construction drawings and stormwater detention and water quality pond drawings have been submitted through the MDP process, but they will not be approved until the SIP process. So engineering will have one more view of those documents. Approval criteria 60302 and 60308, protection of open space. No open space tracts are proposed with this minor development plat application, but I do want to make sure that you are aware that this area is connected to 102 acres of Burns Park. This is going to be a very beautiful regional park. And also 7 acres of a long linear park in 5 that were approved. And those were set aside to meet our park commitments during the preliminary Plan 5 process. To date, and this was also in the staff report, the Sterling Ranch has dedicated 130 acres of parkland. The acreage combined with credible park improvements exceeds the dedication requirements set forth in the Sterling Ranch PD. Approval criteria 60302 and 60308 protect significant culture, archaeological, natural, and historic resources. Metcalf Archaeological Consultants did a Class 3 cultural resource for 5C. They surveyed 24 acres. And I want to point out Scott Springs, because many of you were out in this site as Metcalf did the pretty significant excavation this summer. So 5C is pretty close to that area, and as you know, Metcalf or a consultant called ERO have really gone out and done Class 3 surveys throughout the Sterling Ranch area. We worked with Brittany Castle, who is a Douglas County curator for the Douglas County Repository, when we first moved into this MDP, and there were some concerns that even though we had overlapping study, there were some areas that had not been studied, so we sent Metcalf out there, and they actually did found that 1.6 acres had previously not been studied. So they did the study, and as we always do, we sent forward the results with the State Historical Board because we work closely with them. They're very interested in what is happening out here on this site. Fox Tuttle Transportation Traffic Analysis updated their first report to just focus on the southern portion, as we discussed before. The original traffic study was for 350 multifamily units. The update reflects a lower density of that would cause an estimate 537 fewer vehicles a day. So access to 5C Lot 2 will be from Waterton Road. Funding will be provided by Sterling Ranch for XL and decel lanes on Waterton Road, and the final plans and funding commitments will be approved during the SIP process. 5C has all the necessary services: South Metro Fire, Douglas County Sheriff's Department, Douglas County School District, and XL Energy will serve this proposed subdivision. And also Lumiere for fiber will serve this area. Off-site infrastructure will be provided by our Community Authority Board. On-site water, wastewater, storm sewer, electric, gas, and telecommunications for Lot 2 will be installed in conjunction with the future site improvement plan as that gets further along. A minor development plat may be approved upon the findings that it meets all the approval criteria. This project complies with the Douglas County Master Plan, the Douglas County Subdivision Regulations, county standards, policies, and guidelines. It meets all the requirements. And here is a list. I don't want to go over them. We went over each and every one of them in pretty much in detail through the presentation. I will mention that 60309 is not applicable to many of the Sterling Ranch's applications because we don't really have any known commercial mining deposits on that area. So we comply with all of those approval criteria. On behalf of Sterling Ranch Development Company and the project team, thank you for your time and consideration for reviewing this filing 5C minor development plat application. It's going to provide some really needed attainable housing for this area for those that work and live in Douglas County. It's interesting that the median income in Douglas County is $65,000. And I was at just recently school kickoff meeting for their bond and mill levy, and regardless of where you stand on that, there were comments made that the average teacher starting in Douglas County starts at $45,000 a year. So these are very much needed. These attainable units are very much needed in our community. We agree to all of the conditions, all 4 of the conditions, and I would ask for your support. And we're look forward to answering any of your questions.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Beckman, for that presentation. Any questions for the applicant?
No questions.
Okay. Well, I have a couple of questions, but I think many of them you addressed in a really great presentation, so thank you for that. Ms. Beckman, I know you touched briefly on average rent for units, and you suggested we inquire about that. Do you have some additional information on potential price point?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. In our PD, the language is actually the maximum initial monthly rental rate shall be the monthly rental amount established by the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority for the application unit type, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and assuming 90% median income for Douglas County, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, et cetera, and assuming 90% of the median income for Douglas County. And we have a requirement of a 3% throughout the entire development at total build out for attainable housing. So this will be a good start. So if you go to the CHAPA 2022 limit and maximum rent tables, and that's what we're required to use. For a 1 bedroom with the median income of $65,400, the 1 bedroom rent would be $1,642. So it is much more attainable than some of the other apartment complexes and units that we have, single family, multifamily, townhomes, and paired homes. So we're hoping to bring in, workforce into Sterling Ranch.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And we know how critically important workforce housing is to Douglas County for those first responders, teachers, essential workers that really serve our community on a daily basis. I did want to jump into 603A.03 and just highlight, because water is always so significant to us in the West. My understanding is that the currently available firm water supply from Dominion to Sterling Ranch is 2,457 acre feet, but the projected cumulative water demand with filing 5C is only 1,499.9 per year. Is that still about right?
Sharon, let me just check with my experts. I know they have the staff reports in the water packet. Let me just check to see if that is correct. Chairman Layden, did you get that from the staff report, the water packet?
Yeah, I did, and it's under that 603A.03 section, and I don't mean to have you jump through hoops, just wanted to highlight that the supply is much more, you already have much more supply than there is demand. Mm-hmm.
Yes, Chairman Layden, that is accurate. So we do still have quite a bit of water supply, but as you know, we are developing a community that through the water demand standard reduction is utilizing some of the lowest per acre feet per year in the entire metro area, if not the state of Colorado.
Yeah, and the rainwater harvesting and all of the new technology is just so exciting out there. Mm-hmm. So thank you for those conservation measures. I don't have any additional questions. I'll ask the board one other time if there's any other questions or comments for the applicant or for staff.
No, sir.
None.
Okay, so with that, I will open it up for any citizen comment. Is there any citizen comment in the room or online with regard to this item?
Abe, we're not seeing any takers here in the room.
I have no online comment.
Okay, thank you both. And with that, I'll close citizen comment and bring it back to the board for any further discussion and or a motion.
Again, looks like a great advancement to the plan that we've approved. These details look consistent with what we've seen before. So if it pleases the board, I do have a motion to approve the Sterling Ranch filing 5C minor development because it does meet all the approval criteria with 4 conditions as presented. Project file is SB 2023-006.
Second.
Okay, so we have a first and second on the floor. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
And that motion carries 3-0. Congratulations.
Thank you,
So with
Commissioners.
that, we'll move on. Thank you. So with that, we'll move on to item 3C in our public hearing agenda items, which is a resolution rezoning Highland View Estates Lot 10, being 34.15 acres located in Douglas County, Colorado, from large rural residential design enhancement overlay to large rural residential. Project file ZR 2020-013. Again, Brett Thomas, Chief Planner, presenting for staff.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Brett Thomas representing Planning Services. Items 3C and 3D on the agenda are related and cover both the rezoning and replat application. I will present both applications together. The rezoning application is Highland View Estates Lot 10 rezoning, project number ZR 2020-013. The associated replat is Highland View Estates First Amendment, project number SB 2022-005. Kevin Archer is here as the applicant representative. Before I continue, staff is handing out supplemental public correspondence that has been received since completion of the staff report. That is labeled as Exhibit 3. In addition, the applicant's responses to that public correspondence is also being handed out. That is labeled as Exhibit 4. And Commissioner Layden, these exhibits, as well as the exhibits for the Meridian application, have been emailed to you so that you have those for reference.
Great. Thank you, Brett.
The applicant requests a rezoning of Lot 10 from large rural residential design enhancement overlay to large rural residential. The purpose of the rezoning request is to remove Highland View Estates Lot 10 from the Highland View Estates Design Enhancement Overlay District to restore the allowable uses in the large rural residential zone district so that the owner can construct both a principal residence and guest house on the 34.15 acre property. The need for the replat request is based on the concurrent rezoning application. The design enhancement overlay currently prohibits further subdivision of the lots. In order to preserve the intent of the original design enhancement overlay and subdivision plat, the applicant proposes to add a plat note which prohibits further subdivision of Lot 10. In addition to the plat note, the applicant is requesting to amend the existing building envelope to establish an accessory use building envelope. The design enhancement overlay is a repealed zoning overlay district. To remove or amend a repealed zone district designation, a rezoning is requested. The intent of the rezoning process is to amend the official zone district map with regard to the area of any zoning district. The intent of the replat process is to provide a review process for the replatting of an existing subdivision plat or superblock final plat and include such amendments as building envelope adjustments. The rezoning process begins with submittal of an application. Following a review period by referral agencies and the public, notice is given for public hearings before the Planning Commission and Board of County Commissioners. The replat process is similar, however, it is not heard by the Planning Commission. Staff received comments from neighboring property owners, which were included as attachments to the rezoning and replat staff reports. In addition, you just received public correspondence received since completion of the staff reports. In general, public concerns were related to tree debris, the accessory use building envelope, and potential access to MacArthur Drive. The Planning Commission considered the applicant's request for rezoning at a public hearing on July 10th, 2023. The Commissioner's discussion focused on the intent of the Design Enhancement Overlay District, the concurrent replat process, and the relocation of the building envelope. 2 members of the public spoke. Their primary concerns included the potential visibility of the building envelope, storage of branches and other materials on the property, and the potential for further subdivision. The applicant and staff responded to public comments and clarified further subdivision of the lot would be prohibited via the replat application. The Planning Commission recommended approval of the rezoning request 6-0. The site is located in the northern portion of Douglas County, generally between Highlands Ranch and the city of Lone Tree. As outlined in red on this zoning map, the site is located south of Bluffs Regional Park, west of the South Ridge Preserve development within the city of Lone Tree, and east of MacArthur Ranch subdivision. As depicted on this aerial, the property is immediately adjacent to the north and west of Lot 10, containing single-family residences within the Highland View Estates subdivision. The land to the south and east has been annexed by Lone Tree and remains unplatted at this time. As background, in 1981, the land was zoned estate residential based on the extension of Yosemite Street and other infrastructure expected to serve proposed higher-density residential development. In 1993, the land was rezoned from estate residential to agricultural 2 design enhancement overlay and rural residential design enhancement overlay. Agricultural 2 was the predecessor to large rural residential zone district. The design enhancement overlay rezoning allowed the developer to develop 10 clustered residential lots to preserve natural and topographical features of the land. In addition, the design enhancement overlay established land use limitations, designed restricted building envelopes, and limited agricultural uses of the land. The final plat for Highland View Estates was approved in September of 1993 in order to implement the design enhancement overlay. The final plat included building envelopes on all 10 lots, as well as accessory building envelopes on 3 of the lots. 4 of the 10 residential lots within the Highland View Estates DEO have previously obtained approval for building envelope adjustments. This is a view looking east from the top of the existing residence into the city of Lone Tree's South Ridge Preserve and Ridgegate developments. As noted by the applicant in his response letter, no residences within Ridgegate are visible or have views of the existing residence. This is a view looking west from the top of the existing residence, looking towards MacArthur Ranch, Wildcat Ridge, and Highlands Ranch. This is a view from off-site looking east at the existing residence from Rock Canyon High School, near the intersection of Monarch Boulevard and MacArthur Ranch Road. And this is a view from MacArthur Drive, looking towards the area proposed for the 1-acre accessory use building envelope. The existing sheds are visible in this photo. This slide shows the rezoning exhibit. The property has significant slopes along the north, south, and west portions of the property. The existing building envelope is located in the center of the property, atop the bluff where it is relatively flat. No existing physical conditions are present that would be impacted by the proposed rezoning, and a second residence can fit in the existing building envelope. This slide shows a portion of the replat exhibit. In addition to the plat note, the applicant is requesting to amend the existing building envelope to establish an accessory use building envelope. The replat request proposes to relocate 1 acre of the existing building envelope to the southern portion of the property where 2 existing sheds were constructed outside of the building envelope. Staff has evaluated the rezoning request in accordance with master plan policies in section 25 of the zoning resolution. Staff's full assessment is included in the staff report. This slide lists the approval standards, which are discussed in detail within the staff report for the rezoning application. The rezoning process is described in section 2504 of the zoning resolution. The board shall evaluate the rezoning request, staff report, referral agency comments, applicant responses, Planning Commission recommendation, and public comment and testimony, and shall approve with conditions, continue, table for further study, remand to the Planning Commission, or deny the rezoning request. Staff has evaluated the replat request in accordance with Article 7 of the subdivision resolution. Staff's full assessment is included in the staff report. Should the board find that the approval standards are met, the following proposed conditions should be considered for inclusion in the motion. Condition number 1, prior to the board's action on the replat, the concurrent rezoning application, ZR 2020-013, shall be approved by the board. Condition number 2, prior to recordation of the replat exhibit, Note 3 shall be revised to read, a guest house is not permitted within the accessory use building envelope. Condition number 3, prior to recordation of the replat exhibit, Technical corrections to the replat exhibit shall be made to the satisfaction of Douglas County. And condition number 4, all commitments and promises made by the applicant or the applicant's representative during the public meeting and are agreed to in writing and included in the public record have been relied upon by the Board of County Commissioners in approving the application. Therefore, such approval is conditioned upon the applicant's full satisfaction of all such commitments and promises. This slide lists the approval standards, which are discussed in detail within the staff report for the replat application. The replat process is described in Section 706 of the subdivision resolution. The board shall evaluate the replat requests, staff report, referral agency comments, applicant responses, and public comment and testimony, and shall approve with conditions, continue, table for further study, or deny the replat request. This concludes staff's presentation on the rezoning and replat for Lot 10 of Highland View Estates. 2 motions are necessary from the board. The first motion would be made for the rezoning, following a second motion on the replat. Staff is available to take questions at this time. Otherwise, the applicant representative and owner are available to provide additional information on the request.
Okay, thank you for that, Brett. Any questions for staff?
No questions.
I don't have any questions now. I'd like to hear from the applicant.
Okay, and I have no questions either. We'll ask the applicant to come forward. If you'll just state your name and where you're from, you can proceed with your presentation.
105 Wilcox, Castle Rock, Colorado. Archer is ARCHER.
And before you get going, let me just confirm that you're okay with all the conditions as presented.
Yes, sir, we are.
Okay, thank you.
So a bit of background on the property. The Cliffs bought the property with the intent to build a home and a guest home on the property. As they started through the process, the first home constructed is the guest home, which is the one you could see in the slides. The covenants provided to them allowed for a guest home and a primary residence. As they started through the process, it became apparent that the design overlay did not allow for a primary residence and a guest home. So that kind of started us down the process, if you will. During the time of construction, the Cliffs wanted to work on the property, get it back to the ultimate goal is to get it treed back up and well vegetated, clean up some of the erosion issues they had on the property through the drainage ways and whatnot. So the Cliffs worked with a landscaper to start hauling in trees and whatnot that are left over from other projects and cut down and stuff to start developing mulch piles to help rebuild the soil and work with actually had a low impact permit with the county to start filling in some of the erosion problems using some of the trees and stuff. And so over the years, that portion kind of got started and has been working well. They haven't been covered up with final material yet, as they wanted to kind of be monitored to make sure that they were working like it was intended, and so far that seems to be the case. The buildings, the sheds that were imported were not constructed on site, but moved onto the site. Originally, they were on the Coventry property to the east of the property. A gentleman named Ken Turnbull, some of you might know, he's been a realtor around for a while. He had an ostrich farm on the Coventry property, which included the sheds. He was the lease that he had with Coventry was up, and he had to get rid of the sheds. The Cliffs helped him do that by moving the sheds onto their property. using an existing trail that was across the Coventry property that Mr. Turnbull had permission to use at the time. Since the sheds have been moved in, it's been discovered that that was a zoning violation and they needed to be within a building envelope and permitted. So through this process, we're trying to correct that. The access road that they used to move the sheds in did cross the Coventry property. Since that time, the agreement that Mr. Turnbull had with them to use that road has expired. The Cliffs are working with them or trying to work with them to get access into that lower portion of their property through that road. At this time, it's not been granted. The sheds are there and as mentioned in a zoning violation, which we're here to hopefully correct today. Kind of an important note that access road was not constructed by the Cliffs. It's been there for many, many years and was access to the lower part of that, the Cliffs property. The house that's constructed on the property now, it was originally intended to be a guest house. It's not finished at this point. The exterior still needs some work. The original plan was to cover it with native rock, so it blends in a little better than it does today. As mentioned, all the tree material that's been stacked, that once all of the issues kind of started showing up, work has kind of stopped till we can kind of get through the process and find out what we're going to be able to do in the future. So the intent is if the rezoning goes through and allows for the second house, then they can go ahead and finish the home that's up there now and begin work on the primary residence. The tree material will start to be worked and finished to start revegetating the land. The sheds on the lower part with the second part of this, if the building envelope is approved, will then be in compliance. Access to those still be a little difficult, but there is erosion and stuff down on that portion of the property, so the sheds are kind of a necessary piece for equipment storage and whatnot for continued work on that lower portion. Generally, the letters that are given to you today kind of reiterate those same issues. And yes, we agree that the piles of trees are unsightly, and the intent is with approvals we can move forward to kind of start cleaning that stuff up and finish the existing residence. Mr. Brandt is the president of the Homeowners Association. We're not clear that the letter came from the Homeowners Association or was just a letter from Mr. Brandt. The trees, generally speaking, for the most part, are high up on the hill and not really visible from the residences around the area. However, there's a few spots where some of them might be, but as a general rule, they're pretty hidden from the existing residents. I think with that, I don't have anything further to add. Appreciate looking at the project for us and moving forward from here. And we're available to answer any additional questions.
Great. Well, thank you for that presentation from the applicant. Any questions for the applicant or for staff?
No, sir.
I do have some questions. It's page 324 in the packet, and it's got 3 pictures on it. The way this is printed off, I can't tell you what page it is in this particular item, but it's got 3 pictures. And I'm interested, are you able to put that up on the screen or not?
Only if IT can figure out a way for us to do that. But are you wanting to share it on the screen, or are you just wanting the applicant rep to be able to look at this and make some reference?
I'd like the applicant to explain to me what these 3 pictures
Okay,
are.
we can show them
Perfect.
to him.
So, Mr. Archer, the top picture is all the tree debris that was brought in, is that what that is?
Yes, ma'am.
And the intent of that was to bring a grinder in or something and grind it up and make mulch to stop erosion problems?
I think some of it would be ground up, and some of it would just be laid in the eroded channels. I could have Mr. Cliff explain the details of how all that would be used, but essentially it would be turned into mulch and used on the property to make the soil a little more friable.
Okay. What's the second picture of? Do you know?
I believe that's a picture from the property looking to the west.
So that's not the house on the property right now?
No.
Then the bottom picture with that blue 2- or 3-story house, is that a house on this property?
That's the original intent was that was the guest house, yes.
That was the guest house.
And again, that's not finished because as they were nearing the end of construction, they realized that they couldn't build the primary house, so they stopped construction on this house in case it needs to be turned into the main house.
So this request, there's 2 parts here, but the second one is to do a building envelope around this house?
No, ma'am. The building envelope will be on a lower portion of the property. This house is already in the building envelope, so they're going to take a portion of the building envelope, move it to the southern portion of the property where the sheds were moved to.
Okay.
Do you have a
Thank you for that.
Show a picture. So the existing house that you were seeing in the picture is about right in here.
Okay.
When the sheds that we're talking about were moved in to a location here. So, and then we found out that that was a zoning violation to put the sheds there because it wasn't in a building envelope. So the request is to remove an acre of building envelope on the northern portion here and relocate it down here. And as Brett said, that's just a building envelope specifically for accessory buildings, not a guest house.
So if the blue house is the guest house, where do you want to put the primary house?
The primary house, I think generally was going to be a little more over in this area and situated quite a bit lower and kind of in a little valley that sits here.
And there's a building envelope or something that would allow for that to be built there?
Yes, it would be within the existing building envelope.
So this is a lot of stuff that we got while I was trying to glance through it and hear from you.
Yeah.
And so there were 2 or 3 other neighbors that also complained. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So what are you doing to solve the problem with the neighbors that are complaining about all this?
So all of the letters, if you read through all of the letters or get the chance to, they're all pretty similar. They don't make different claims. It's all kind of the same claim, if you will. So as I stated, the trees, the tree piles, we've kind of confirmed through zoning are not a zoning violation. So the only zoning violation itself is the sheds that were moved in over here. So in an effort to get everything cleaned up and whatnot, with the rezoning, we can get, they can start and know that they can build the primary residence, and that'll clean up the way they'll be able to finish the guest house. Get it surfaced, get the final exterior products put on it, which will help mitigate the blue color, I guess, if you will. And then as far as the trees and stuff, then they can start moving forward with processing that material and getting it placed to help get the soil rebuilt back up where it can withstand some vegetation.
Okay. I didn't realize, I don't know if I should have disclosed this. I walked on the Bluffs Regional Trail for the first time maybe 3 weeks ago, and I saw this blue building sticking out of nowhere, and I was actually shocked to see that building there because I'd never walked that trail and seen that part of MacArthur Ranch, which is beautiful, and it just sticks out it's so visible. So the plan is, if this is approved, is to finish that so it isn't so obvious.
That's correct.
And then just one other thing I'd like to clarify. You were talking about a road that was used, was it across this property that was used to bring in these 2 sheds? But now this road across this same property can't be used to move the sheds out?
That's, yeah, that picture right there. So you can kind of write that the property doesn't go all the way to MacArthur Drive. So there was a trail, starts about here and kind of comes up through here, and the sheds sit right in this area. So that road has been in existence. I wouldn't call it a road, it's a trail, kind of a 2-track trail that's been there. You can go back on Google Maps, clear back into the 40s and 50s and see that road there. So Mr. Turnbull, who had the Ostrich Ranch, had an agreement with Coventry to use that access to get those buildings up there. So at the time the buildings got put in, Coventry came in then and fenced that property line, and so that road is no longer usable. Mr. Clift has been trying to get a hold of them so we can get a gate there and maybe a limited access through that area. That hasn't been established at this time, but still working on it. The only other, it's real steep in this area to gain access from the top. There's a major drainage that runs right through here, and there's a little piece of property right here that is on the right-of-way line for MacArthur Drive. Access is nearly impossible here because it's a very deep ravine. It'd have to be filled in and a pretty large culvert put in there to get access through there. With enough money, it could happen, but it's pretty difficult.
So I guess I'm trying to understand what the importance of this road is. Is needing this trail or this road necessary to access the home?
No.
So why do you need that road?
The road is basically access to this portion of the property, vehicular access. So the reason I brought it up is it was mentioned that it was used illegally to put the sheds where they are in the current documents we just got.
So you just told us to let us know that it was used legally at the time.
Right.
But getting access to this part of the property has nothing to do with your request.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. I have no other questions.
Great. So any other additional questions from the board to Mr. Archer or to staff?
No, sir.
Okay. I have no further questions, and we're taking up both of these as one, so I will ask for any citizen comment on either this item C or item D.
We do have a taker here in the room. Abe?
Welcome, sir. You want to just state your name and where you're from for the record?
Jim Brandt, President of Highland View Estates Homeowners Association. Lot 6, 10817 Highland View Court. First, I want to agree with City of Lone Tree's letter. They dated back in June of 21. They had a lot of different points. It's in your packet, I'm sure. You can look at it. I sent a letter to Brett Thomas on July 31st with some pictures that may help Commissioner Thomas understand where that road is and stuff like that. It's a Google Maps view, and you can see that road, which he no longer has access to. In that packet also, I showed you a view of Highland View Estates from Bluffs Regional Park that she just walked, and also what Lot 10 looks like with the debris piles. Those debris piles were dumped in either 2018 or 19, and as far as I can tell, nothing has been done with them. If you look at Google Maps, I mean, that sucker is 100 feet long. It's a huge pile. That material was going to be used to fill in, I assume, the drainage ditch along MacArthur Drive that he only has 75 feet of access to. If you put that material in there, what's going to happen in these big rainstorms? I think it's going to cause problems down the road. The only access he has to this lower section is either ATV or by foot, which he claimed, which he mentioned in the last the planning commissioners meeting. That's the only access he has. He's already got, the two sheds down there. He's already built up debris down there. I don't think it should be approved, the replat. It's already ugly, and it's only going to make the problem worse. If you look at the current envelope he has, is he going to repeat it down below? So I ask you to not approve the replat of that. And if you look at those pictures, I don't know if you really want to rezone up the current envelope and have it continue being looking the same way it is now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any additional citizen comment from the room?
Looks like we do or do not have another citizen comment. Looks like we do not have additional citizen comment in the room, Abe.
Okay, and then I'll ask for any citizen comment online.
Thank you, Commissioner. I have no online comment.
Okay, with that, I'll close citizen comment and allow the applicant to come back and address the citizen comment, if you would.
Thank you, Commissioners. Vaughan Clift, VAUGHAN CLIFT, Lot 10, 10750 Highland View court the property that's being discussed. Thank you very much for permitting me to respond. The issue is that this is being misconstrued. With permission from the county, I tried an experiment, and we were talking about this before, George, Commissioner Teal, you were talking about pilots experiments. I wanted to fill that gully with a technique that's been used in Australia successfully for the last 50 years, which involves putting small logs and larger logs on top, and it allows the water to pass through, but traps the silt. And over a period of time, you reclaim the gully. But the county was uncomfortable with me doing it in the large one, so they permitted me to do it in a small one. And the small one is what these pictures are about that Mr. Thayer and the other two neighbours were concerned about. And I agree with them. It's not as pleasant a nice sight as a grass. It's a lot better than the gaping ditch that was there, but it's still an eyesore. The reason it's not been covered over is because in the discussions when we first did it, the county and I wanted to see the process work. And now we can see years later, the silt level is right up at the same level as the soil. We are ready to cover it over and replant it. And the only thing stopping me at this stage is in September, both the CSU Extension's Land Management Program, the National NRCS, I don't know what they stood for, I'm sorry, and Douglas County Conservation District want to come and see it, and if possible, begin a teaching program to show people how they too can repair gullies. So I don't disagree with the comments from our neighbours. It doesn't look as pleasant as it does down there in this gully because it really needs to be covered over. If the commissioners are willing to indulge me, I can actually show you how the process works. I've got some images of an example of it going through. It's been used in Utah, Arizona, many parts of the world, obviously Australia in a large degree. The second area, up the top, unfortunately, human use, mostly taking away fuel from the property in the gold rush, and then the introduction of blackface sheep by both the MacArthur and Thornton families, damaged all the natives. And so the top part of the property, unlike the surrounding other parts of our HOA, blew away. All the topsoil's gone, and nothing grows there. And there is a way to fix it. And the way you fix it is by essentially reproducing a forest floor. You allow the wood to age so that the fungi takes away the ability of the wood to be a nitrogen sump. Essentially, the cellulose and lectins in the wood become nitrocellulose and nitrates. So after a year or two, that wood now becomes a nitrogen source. You chip it, you put a couple of inches on top, and within a year or two, you'll actually see rich mountain soil with worms and nitrate, phosphate, and potassium levels that can establish trees. This is not my science. It's been done for 50 years. I was chief scientist for the space program, and I did do part of this as part of the mission to Planet Earth from NASA Johnson, but this is just an interesting hobby, or I guess later stage in life activity on my part. So I'm very grateful to the county. The drainage engineers have come to see it, the erosion engineers have come to see it, now CSU Extension, the Botanic Gardens, and the National Conservation are coming to use this as a potential way to improve the quality of land damaged by misuse previously. And that misuse largely was bad farming practices. And we want that to go back. And I understand they don't quite see it for what it is, and they are correct. We got stalled. We brought it there, we were going to go straight ahead, finish the house, build a new house, do the landscaping, and then we found out we have no idea where the house is going to be, even if we're going to be allowed a house. So we stopped the landscaping process as well. And as soon as we can, we will make sure that house that you saw, and I agree with you, Laura, it is not what my wife and I want. It's supposed to have split stone in the bottom half and then a sort of a clay trumped loyal, so it would look like one of the bluffs, and it may in fact vanish from sight. But we didn't get there yet. And so I'm very grateful for your indulgence. We will get there. If we're successful in this process, then we'll be able to complete it. And we'll be able to move the logs. Now, you'll see some of the big logs there. That's actually a technique that works in alpine deserts like we live in. It's a method where you actually take out the hollow part of the log, the center, you rest it on top of this regenerated forest floor. You actually plant the tree inside, the sapling inside, about halfway up. It protects the sapling and provides tremendous water, but also in winter it provides warmth from the decomposing material. And so the saplings grow at a very accelerated rate. It's been used, as I said, to de-desertify, I don't know the correct term, but to take the deserts out of Arizona and places like that where they've had terrible troubles, where the desert keeps on encroaching into habitable areas. And so it's a really simple technique, but you need a big log. And that's what we're going to do. In our instance, we have a big log, and then we have to put a deer fence around it because the deer just love those saplings. The actual saplings are coming from the Colorado State Nursery. They actually provide this for you at a very low price. You can get thousands of these saplings, so you can do exactly this, regenerate the land. Does that answer any of your questions? And if you'd like to see an example of it, I can show you one from a version of it, which is actually a garden box, and show how effective it really is. Would you like to? Mr. Lane,
Thank
I
you
hope
for that,
have
sir. I'll ask the board if we need to see that video or if those answers were sufficient.
For me, the answer is cleared up a lot, and I do not need to see any other information. Thank you, though.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner?
Yeah, no, that's okay by me. And by the way, I'm utilizing that erosion control technique on my land in Teller County. I've got much smaller erosion gully that formed. We're doing it with aspen logs, and it's part of my practicing forestry without a license because we're sourcing the logs from dead aspens on the property. And actually, yeah, even just after one winter, we're seeing a nice buildup of natural silt. And so, I mean, I probably got a lot more work ahead of me to kind of really repair that. But no, thanks for giving me that idea, and I'm putting it into practice too. So it'll be neat to see you put this into practice as you move forward.
It will take years, as you would understand, Commissioner, that it's taken 100 years for the soil to be lost. It's going to take me a decade to get it back to where it was, but you do it in segments, you do it in stages, and we'll do it around the house to begin with.
Yeah. Again, my gully is nowhere near as big. Sounded like a good idea. I went with it. It's working.
Thank you.
Great. So with that, I will, having closed citizen comment, we'll bring it back to the board for any further discussion and or a motion.
I do have a question back to staff. I'm so sorry, but for item D, remind me again our conditions. How many conditions we have?
4.
Okay.
4.
I'm glad, thank you, because I got that wrong.
Did you have a question, or was that it?
That's good enough for me. Commissioner, keeping with our normal practices, this would be your motion to make. I'm happy to make it if you'd rather not.
No, I'm ready. I just wasn't sure if that was your question or if you had another question, that's all. I have a motion then to approve a resolution rezoning Highland View Estates, Lot 10, being 34.15 acres, located in Douglas County, Colorado, from large rural residential design enhancement overlay to large rural residential because it does meet all of the approval criteria, project file ZR 2020-013.
Yeah, I do agree. I do believe that we have a real example of a landowner here, who got a piece of property, had ideas. As soon as he found he was in violation, came before the county to remedy, and so I second.
Great. So we have a first and second on the floor. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that motion carries 3-0. We'll accept another motion.
In light of my comments with the prior item, again, I see a landowner wants to do the right thing, got a few difficulties thrown his way. My condolences about the losses in the family, by the way, sir. And obviously it delayed, as we've heard in the course of the testimony, but I do have a motion to approve the Highlands View Estates First Amendment replat because it does meet all the approval criteria with 4 conditions as presented. Project file is SB 2022-005.
Second.
So there's a first and second on the floor. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that motion carries 3-0. Thank you for that. We'll move on to our last item under 3, which is a resolution supplementing the 2023 adopted budget to appropriate unanticipated revenues and appropriate restricted, assigned, and unassigned fund balances in the amount of $16,889,935. Kim Hirsch, Budget Manager, presenting for staff. Hi, Kim.
Hi. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'd like to formally present the 4th supplemental for fiscal year 23. The total amount of the request for your consideration today is $16,889,935. More specifically, the supplemental request will be increasing appropriations for new revenues that have been received since the formal budget adoption, unspent project dollars to be carried into the current fiscal year, and new initiatives that require Board of County Commissioner approval prior to the approval for spending authority purposes. I'll quickly go through some of the larger requests by fund, and I'll be happy to answer any of the questions that you may have at the end of the presentation. The general fund is $2,429,283, of which roughly $1.3 million of additional spending authority will be completely offset by new revenues received. In the board's packet, I've outlined all requests that require additional funding. However, a few of the larger ones include $417,000 to fund one additional community response team that will be dedicated to the youth of Douglas County, and $469,000 for the 6-month extension with Trans-Aero helicopter, which allows Douglas County to remain proactive in possible wildfire emergencies. The Road and Bridge Fund, $2,743,773. Of this amount, $1,425,000 of assigned fund balance is being transferred to the general fund to help offset the emergency mobilization and response expenses related to the June tornado in Highlands Ranch. Another $888,300 of fund balance is being requested to enter into a 2-year leasing agreement with Honan Equipment for additional motor graders and wheel loaders. The Human Services Fund, $3,103,667, of which $2,844,197 are completely offset by new revenues. The state allocation is based on the months of July 2022 through June 2023. Thus, additional spending authority is needed for the final 6 months of Douglas County's calendar budget year. The Law Enforcement Authority Fund, $181,256. The School Safety and Security Fund, $429,992 of additional funding is being requested to offset the cost associated with 3 additional school resource officers that were approved by the Board of County Commissioners on June 1st, 2023. The 3 schools included in this request is Ben Franklin Academy, Cherry Hills Christian, and Colorado Christian Academy. The Road Sales and Use Tax Fund, $2,019,749 in additional capital improvement projects, all of which will be offset by new revenues received. The Parks and Open Space Sales and Use Tax Fund, $5,311,715. With the passage of the Open Space Sales and Use Tax extension by the voters in November 2022, all budgeted expenditures and remaining fund balance in the Park Sales and Use Tax Fund is being transferred into this fund at this time. Moving forward, all parks and open space projects will be expended and reconciled within this one fund. The Park Sales and Use Tax Fund, $574,900. As I just mentioned, this transfer will be going to the Parks and Open Space Fund, and this will close out Fund 255. I'm simply asking the Board of County Commissioners to recognize this transfer at this time. And lastly, the Capital Expenditures Fund, $95,600 of additional expenditures are being requested to offset the remodeling of the Wilcox Basement Building Training Room. Again, the total request as presented today is $16,899,935. With this supplemental, the new amended budget for Douglas County will be $698,488,020. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have at this time.
Oh, Kim, that's awfully close to 700 million. My goodness. Any questions for Kim Hirsch?
It is. I have no questions. Kim, thank you.
Yeah, no questions. Thank you for doing that math, so we don't have to.
Story of our lives, right? Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it, Kim, and thank you for your patience through our hearing today. With that, let me open it up for any citizen comment, either in the room or online, with regard to this item.
No citizen comment observed in the room.
And no online comment.
Okay, thank you both. And with that, I'll close citizen comment and bring it back to the board for any further discussion and or a motion.
I have a motion to approve a resolution supplementing the 2023 adopted budget to appropriate unanticipated revenues and appropriate restricted, assigned, and unassigned fund balances in the amount of $16,889,935.
Agree and second.
Great. So we have a first and second on the floor. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that motion carries 3-0. The next land use meeting public hearing will be held on Tuesday, August 22nd, 2023 at 2:30 p.m. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.